Today on Beat Up Builds, we're putting the hood scoop on. Alright, let's get started. So I went to the store, I got some all-thread quarter 20. I tried to thread a bolt in, seemed like it either was quarter 20 or real close. So I got the quarter 20 tap, I'm going to run it through all the holes in here just to clean them up or get them to quarter 20 so these thread in. And then I've got some epoxy that I'm going to put on there. I'm going to get those situated. I got some other hardware just to help mount it. That's the first thing I'm going to do so I can start making a template. So the interesting thing is these pedestals sit a little bit lower than the actual lip of the scoop. So I don't know if they're going to bend when I tighten them down. I got to figure that out. I might have to space them up in washers. I don't know. I'll have to look maybe at an actual one and see if there's anything on there. It could just be that the Ford Mustang hood is like a lot thicker than this one. This one is like a piece of paper almost. It's so thin. So we'll figure that one out. We're going to start there and then make a template off of that once I get all the studs in. Transfer it onto here. Get it so it bolts on here, and then we'll start cleaning this up a little bit. Should be able to throw some kind of paint on just to make it look a little bit better, match this a little better than just like a weird flat black kind of thing. So let's get started on that, and I'll show you some tips and tricks along the way too. Alright, we're going to start trying to tap these things. So I got my quarter 20 tap. I started this one already, so it's pretty easy. So it seems like you don't want to go too far on this too, because if you bottom it out in here, you're going to crack the fiberglass, and that's not going to be good. I measured this one, I threaded in here. Looks like it goes in about 5/8 of an inch. This is about a 1/2 inch, this stud, so I think 1 1/8, if I'm doing my math right, that's where I want to cut all these. So I'm going to go through, I guess I'll just tap all these first, that way that's done. And then I'll cut all these and I'll show you, show you some tricks to make this a little bit easier. And yeah, that's what we'll do. That's where we'll start to glue those in. Little thing I do is I actually keep my tap and my drill bit in like a little holder. These are actually like come with, if you order a bunch of drill bits, they come in one of these. But you could probably use like a travel toothbrush holder, I'm thinking, for something like this. But then you can label it like I labeled this quarter 20. And it's got, this one I've used a bunch, because quarter 20 was a popular one that I used. So this one actually has a drill bit, a tap, and I have like a little quarter 20 bolt, and like a center drill bit. And actually this quarter 20 bolt, I made a little point on the end, so it's kind of like a center punch, you know, ghetto center punch. But then you could throw that in your hole if it's like a quarter 20 hole, whatever you're mounting, and you can center punch it. And super cheap, super ghetto, but it works. So that's a little tip. So let's tap the rest of these, and then I'll show you how to cut the threaded rod and make it easy on yourself to some degree. You can do it with just hand tools, whatever you got. Nothing fancy. So let's go ahead and tap the rest of these holes. Alright, we got them all tapped out. It runs down the same amount in each one, which is awesome. It kind of bottoms out at like that 5/8 of an inch. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to cut all these off and show you guys how to do it. Some tips and tricks, whatever. And then we're going to take them, double nut them, a little epoxy in there, run them down a little bit over snug with the epoxy in there, and we'll be good to go. We'll be able to start making a template. Alright, so I got this junky vise thing. I double nutted, so basically you take two nuts and you tighten them against each other really tight. So that way I can clamp on the nuts and not the threaded rod, because you'll ruin the threads if you do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark 1.25 inches. I'm going to use the caliper just to try and do it close to the same. So I'm going to go on the end here. I'm going to leave a little mark here. Let's see, up pretty close. I'm going to shoot, if anything, just a touch longer. So the mark's over here, but I'm marking like just like a thread back. Because I'd rather be just a touch long than a touch short. So that's how I'm going to do all of them. And that's it. Let me bring these outside. I'm going to cut off wheel. I'm going to cut it, measure, cut it, measure, cut it. And I bought 2 pieces of threaded rod, so you know what that means. If you bought 2, you're only going to use 1. Let's see what happens. Alright, so I got a bunch of these little things I cut off. You can put a nut on there and then roll the nut off, and that straightens the threads out, which isn't always a bad way of doing it. But what I'm going to do is I've put it in the drill here, and I'm going to take the grinder, I'm going to kiss the end just a little bit, and then I'm going to chamfer the edge just a little bit, and then the nut will go right on there, and it'll thread right in really easy, even easier than if you put the if you had a nut on here and you backed it off, because see how I got cut on like an angle? It's going to fix all that. So I'm going to do that quick. Basically I'm going to lay the drill like this, pull the trigger, and run the grinder at the other hand. If you have a bench grinder, you can do this and just use it on the bench grinder, which works way better, but I don't have a bench grinder, so we're gonna do it kind of janky, but it works. Alright, we got them all done, so check it out. I don't know if you can see the finish on there. That's a lot better than just backing the nut off. And the cool thing is, and your nut can go right on here. See? It's a little bit more professional. We didn't use very professional tools to do it. So it's not perfect. Some of them aren't like perfectly like centered chamfer kind of angle-y things on them. But still way better than just putting the nut on there after you cut it and just sending it. So let's epoxy these bad boys in there. Alright, this is the time-sensitive part. So at least this is 15 minutes, so I think we can get it done actually. Oh, exploded a little. That's probably knowing me, that's probably too much. Alright. Mix this up real quick. Hoping that I can take this little stick and just put a little down the hole, as opposed to dipping the threads in, because then it'll kind of back up, I think, towards the top of the hole, which could make a problem as far as putting washers around it, whatever, if it needs to go up to the hole. And I don't think it really needs to, it doesn't need to be like welded in there. It just needs a little something to help the threads out, because I'm sure the threads aren't perfect on here. Well, that could have went better, I guess. Alright, hopefully I put enough and that sets up. I guess worst comes to worst, I just have to box them again. Worst case scenario. So we'll see what happens. Now I can make a template while they're drying and set the template up on the hood here. Alright, I got the template going here. Basically I laid this box over it and like kind of pushed and rubbed where the studs were to make an imprint. And then I think this is for leather working, it's like a little punch thing. Punched out where the holes were and pretty much transferred perfectly. Slid it on there, and then I've outlined it with pencil. So I think I'm gonna trim some of the excess off, probably not all of it. Like I think back here I'm gonna leave like an inch maybe, because I think I want it like an inch or two off the back anyway. But and that way I can like use the line here for the midpoint. I made some midpoint lines, and I can work off of that. I'll cut a little bit off of the front here. Probably like this area cut off, just so there's not all that flapping. Hopefully it'll be easier to work with. And yeah, then I can lay it out. Alright, I got the template laid out on here. I marked the center line, front and rear. So that should be where it sits. I'm gonna just lay the scoop on top of that just to make sure it looks okay there. I'm not sure. I kind of just guessed on how far from the lip here. I may have wanted it a little bit further back, but let me lay it up here and we'll see what it looks like. Alright, so that's about where it's gonna sit. I think that's pretty good looking there. It's kind of cool, like how that line kind of flows into that line a little bit. I think that's a good amount of spacing back there. So yeah, I think that's a good spot for it. I'll leave it sit on here and take a look again in the morning just to make sure that's where I want it. Alright guys, so I'm not taking the hood off. It would be better to do it that way, but I'm not doing it. I don't feel like horsing around with it. So I'm just going to drill it on here. I put a board underneath, so that way when I drill through, I don't drill through my hoses and all that stuff, whatever's under there, and create more work for myself. So if you're going to do it that way, do it like that. The better way, yeah, is take the hood off. So I've checked everything, and I'm happy with where it's at. Looks like it's sitting centered. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to center punch the holes with the little punch I have. And then I'm going to do a pilot hole with one of these little drill bits. I don't know if you guys will be able to see that too good, but I think these are called center drills. I have to look up the term on them. But it's basically a drill bit with like a little tiny drill bit on the end. And they're short, so when you go and drill in, like a longer drill bit will have a tendency to like walk a little bit. So this will just keep it from walking as much. I recommend getting a couple of these, and it's really handy to have them and just pilot drilled holes. If you need like perfectly centered. So between that and knocking the putting a little dimple in with your punch, then you'll be in good shape, and your holes will line up better. All your brackets you make will be a lot better that way. So I'm going to go through and do all of these. I guess I'll start in the front. Alright, I did the best I could to center punch on the hood's floppy like a wet noodle because all the hood bracing separated on here. That's kind of common, at least on the Toyotas I've owned, the older Toyotas. So, I don't know, we're just going to work with what we got. The nice thing is this doesn't like to walk, so that'll help us a lot. If I have just a little, if I got at least a little indentation, I think that'll help get us started, and hopefully that'll work out. My best recommendations is just go easy on it, start it a little, look at where you're starting, and you can actually tilt the drill a little bit to move your hole around a little bit. Even if you can even do that if it's still off once we get this hole through, you can do that a little bit with your bigger bit just to help get things aligned. So you can kind of go on a little bit of an angle, and it'll help straighten your hole. So let's drill these and see what happens. Alright, I went like 4 sizes over 1/4 inch roughly, just to give me some wiggle room. And we're going to try and drill the first hole and see how that works out, and that may change things if this doesn't work out the greatest, but we'll see. Yay, it finally fits! I guess my measurements could have been a little bit better. I think ultimately it was just these 2 holes were screwing me up. But we got pretty big washers we can put over there. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. Now I could take at this point I could take the template off. I think I'm going to save it in case I get another hood down the road or whatever. Just fold it up and stick it in the cabinet or something. But yeah, let's take it off and lay it on there and see how it looks. Alright, it's looking pretty good. I do have to figure out the hood bracing, that'll be the next thing. And it might stick up a little in the front. We'll see after I tighten everything down. I'm hoping after I tighten everything down, it'll kind of draw it all up, and there won't really be a big gap here. I am a little worried that there'll be a gap there. But let's get it on there. We can figure that out down the road. But it looks pretty cool. I like it. I think it looks awesome. I think it's lined up good. I think it looks pretty good on here. So let's finish her out. Alright, so here's our situation. I thought we were going to be alright, but of course, this one's just touching that. Same here, so these won't be too bad. I don't think. I'll try and maybe pilot drill in here, and I have like a 9/16 bit. I'll try my best to make that look decent. So these 2 middle ones, those are golden. I thought that these were going to land up here. That would have been sweet, and then these would have been good, and then these. So this one I actually caught with the drill bit a little bit and made a hole. So maybe that's a good start there. I gotta do those two. So I guess I'll mark these, and there is one in the middle here. So perhaps this middle one, I don't know if it's up in here. Maybe I'll just try and drill it through because it's flat. I think it's flat where it's gonna land. Like if these are landing over here, I think it's gonna put it just on this flat bit. So maybe I can just drill that one through and then drill it bigger with like a 9/16 bit, which is the biggest I have. And then hopefully that'll remedy all that and we can bolt it on. So let's see how that works out. Alright, I did what I could. I think these holes aren't horrible. Once I throw a little paint on there, I think they'll look okay. These ones I'm not super thrilled about. I think if I come back with a bigger unibit later on, I can round it out, make it look a little nicer. This one came out okay. I think the same thing, I could just run a unibit through it. But yeah, should be able to get the hood on, or the scoop on. Let's give it a shot. Alright, so I've found my unibit. These holes are coming out terrible. 9/16 bit wasn't big enough for the 7/16 socket. So I found my Christmas tree bit. I'm going to try and do these three with that. And then up here, I'm going to try and use this die grinder thingy I got. And if that doesn't work or isn't working out, then I think I'm going to like cut it here with the cutoff wheel and just try and cut it out because it looks terrible. But let's see if this will work for drilling the hole bigger. Alright, so these holes look a lot better down here. A lot happier with that. I should be able to get all the hardware on. These ones I had to play with a little bit, but I was able to get these acceptable looking. So squirt some paint on there and we're good to go. Alright, we're doing the fun stuff. We're doing some paint work now. So I had some self-etching primer, I figured, because this was kind of bare metal. Squirted that on here, top, bottom. I'm gonna shoot some black paint over it next. And the hood scoop is out here. So I got that going in the sun here. So I primed it. I'm gonna do one more coat of prime. Then I'm gonna base coat it with flat black, just because I have, I think it's Duplicolor. It's like a color match thing. They sell them in AutoZone. They have all the color matches, and it gives it a little clear coat, like it's kind of like a single stage, but it doesn't cover well at all. So I'm gonna base coat it with the flat black because I have some cheap flat black, and then I won't need so much of the other paint. Because it'll already be black. So that's the plan. Alright, I touched up the hood. It's looking pretty decent, at least blending in. I'm not going for perfection. So then the hood scoop, I'll put flat black on there. Just as a base coat, and then we're gonna put gloss black as a to give it the shine. Alright, we got some black on there. I actually had a little bit of clear coat. I threw that over, so it's a little bit shiny. So let's go stick it on. Alright, it looks awesome. I forgot to put the little grill piece back in, but I'm gonna have to screw around with it a little bit anyway. So I'll take it off and put that in the future here. But yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I think it really matches the truck. So yeah, I'm super happy with it. It looks awesome. I think it was a good decision. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below.